Hello again. I'm back with another video talking about two different types of sculptures, which is relief or freestanding sculpture, which is sculpture in the round. There are more types of sculpture, like including kinetic, uh, performance, and earthwork. But I'm not going to talk to you about those. But I believe those exist in like the digital 3D space too, like as a simulation of video games or movies that a person wants to make because it's like a big performance, right? And it's like a kind of like simulation of like certain environment or textures. But I believe that by knowing what is a relief or what is a sculpture in the round can kind of help you decide where to place certain sculptures or where to place certain figures. Which leads me to my next point of an image of Nubis holding his figures. So the example I have in front of you right now is basically an example of low relief. So a low relief is basically reliefs are anything that just basically sit up on a plane. So let's say take this plane for example. Is a square box form, which has a figures on top of a ground. So the figures doesn't necessarily have to be extruded outward. They can basically be extruded inward. But the ground stays the same no matter what. The figure is what holds the key interest of the viewer. So Nubis and his scales are the figures, or the hieroglyphs are the figures. So they're either basically bulging outwards or bulging inwards. So if you, thanks to modern day technology, you can like basically look at this or get a feel of how this would look in like more of a high relief. So if I push S to scale and scale this along the, hold on, I'm scaling my light. Push S to scale and scale this on along the Y axis. My shadow starts to become more like deeper or richer. It's also because how I'm positioning a light too. So you can kind of like tell the difference between the low and high relief. So if you start to say, I want to take this to the next level. What is the next level of a relief? So you taking your drawings or your anything and kind of like making a little bit, kind of like carving into it or extruding out a little bit, not really making it round, just basically something to kind of like get yourself into sculpture, and then you go into like a high relief or uh, a sculpture that's almost in a round. It still have like the limitation of the wall or the figure, but you can clearly tell if I put this on like a material preview mode. You can clearly tell the difference between the figure and the ground. So in most cases, when you think about the figure and the ground on like flat art, including drawings, the white sheet of paper is the figure. You know, I mean, it's the ground. It's where the is where the background exists. Like the points of interest, like I said before, is the figure. So when you get to this, you can see the figures, which actually are figures, human figures, and then you can see the ground, which is the wall back behind it. So reliefs are not meant to be viewed from behind. So they're only like meant to be viewed from front, or in this case, with this almost figure in the round, which is basically a kind of like with this like a freestanding sculpture. It's almost freestanding, but you can't view it from all sides. It has more depth, and it has more depth. And if I basically turn this to render mode, I like to use render mode because especially it's like a simulation of how the light bounces off of real materials. So I'm gonna use cycles because cycles is really awesome. It makes everything look real. you know, like let's say for example, if you're teaching this in class, you can actually show, instead of going to a museum, you can actually show them like where you're teaching from. You know, like for example, this artist is named John Batista Cup and this figure is basically this piece of art is called the dance. So instead of like seeing an image or a picture of this thing, you can actually go inside and see like how light plays off of the figures, and how light the figure and the ground play off of each other. I think it's a really awesome thing. Also, you can play around with like the light of the background. Like I can make it a real light kind of thing, or I can make it a real dark kind of thing. So it depends on what you like. What are you doing, or what you're using the software for. But yeah. So this brings me to my next, the David. Let's get this back into like a more serious gravity state. Yeah. So David the sculptor David was a sculpture that was sculpted by Michelangelo, one of like the four major artists during the Renaissance, which actually they made like a cartoon on by Michelangelo, Leonardo, Raphael, and Donatello, right? All of them was major artists. But this one is Michelangelo, the sculpture. I think he said sculpture informs how he draw. They both inform each other. But like sculpture in the realm, it's not really implied like a ground. The ground is whatever the sculpture fits inside. So like the figure, obviously David is the figure, and the ground is wherever scene I will choose to basically sit this in, with this as like the focal point, would be the ground. This is the figure. Like the darkness of space is basically the ground of David. So with figures in a round, I will have to basically pay attention to more of every detail. I want people to see like the whole figure from each side, from each angle, including the top. Like including the top. On the bottom. You can view the bottom if you like, but I don't think people will view down there. But in regards to video games, like video games is a nice, what I like to consider a composite. You could take all these concepts about like low, high relief, almost figuring around, and kind of using those concepts to kind of create like something or an asset for a video game, whether it be houses, textures, or armor, people. And like you got to figure out like, all right, what is a good way to use these things? And one of my favorite reason why I chose this figure is because this is one of my favorite video games, and this character is named Master Chief. So if you think of this in like a form of sculpture, like Master Chief is the figure, right? So you have to focus on all the aspects of Master Chief, which is in the round. So after you focus on the overall, like the concept of them, then you break it into parts. You break the armor into parts. You start to do like insets or extrusions or high relief, low relief. You started playing with different designs. Sometimes people like to kind of like draw those things out first and then place those things upon the figure in order to get like a better view. In order to save time, you have to draw these things out and then basically play around with them on top of the sculpture. So that's so I guess I'm coming to an end. That's the only thing I wanted to go over with you today is talking about the three types of only two types of sculpture for right now, like which is relief and figuring around, or which is called freestanding, and basically how this can be used to be made with animation or texture design or anything. I hope that clears up some questions that people have about stuff like high relief, low relief figure downs or whatever. And thanks for watching. And hopefully my videos will become more organized as time go by. But I just wanted to kind of like share my thoughts. Well, hope you have a good rest of the day or night and make some art.